We're going to have our guest now call in. His name is Jerry Thomas, JT. We've had him on before. He's a wonderful engineer that's done a lot to help the cause of clean energy and advanced sciences, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the advanced sciences. Anything before we get started, JT?
Just to give people a little bit of background, maybe about the idea. These days we think, maybe we're rather advanced in sciences, when in fact perhaps 2,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, whatever, they were more advanced than we think.
Yeah, and I will share along that lines. I was invited, this is back probably 30 years ago now, I was interested in archaeology, and we funded a lot of different things back when I had the ability to do so. One of the things were archaeologists, and we funded Ron Wyatt, who's archaeologist for God, but we also funded another guy. Name escapes me right now, but anyway, if it comes to me, I'll tell you his name. But he was from Utah, and he had 2 archaeological digs there, and he was digging out ancient software, what we'd call hardware, I guess, from electronics. So there's computer boards, and there were diodes and transistors and resistors and inductors and capacitors and all the components we use now, and then about 3 or 4 more things we didn't recognize. What now we'd probably call them integrated circuits. That was one of the things we probably didn't recognize. And he was saying these things are 200 million years old, is what he was saying. I don't know that they were that old, but it was obviously old because it was underneath a layer of rock, probably 50 feet thick. It was in a layer of sandstone, and there were 2 of these ancient garbage dumps, basically. We'd pull a lot of other things besides electronics out of them. Have you ever seen anything ancient like that, JT?
I have yet to see an artifact that would be in a 200 mil pit, but there have been books written on these kind of artifacts. They're called out-of-place artifacts, out of time, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And what would be some theories as to I mean, obviously there could have been advanced civilizations way back then, right?
That would be the running thought. That in fact we've had advancements come and go many, many times in the course of perhaps millions, tens, hundreds of millions of years, contrary to thinking of, and of course, the most relevant one that we can look at, that everyone can certainly see, is something like the Great in Egypt. That gives something everybody can sort of stare at and agree that something a little different there.
The Great Pyramid of Egypt, yes. Matter of fact, I've talked to engineers that have been in there with their instruments, and they say that a lot of the stones are ground within 1/10,000th of an inch of accuracy, perfectly flat. I mean, that's top quality work today, and they were doing this thousands and thousands of years ago. And so there's plenty of evidence that, and the weight of these stones are such that we don't even have the ability to lift them today with the best equipment we got, the weight of some of these stones. The big ones like in the Queen's Chamber and so on. And there was a big slab called the monolith that I think weighed 120 tons or something like this. I don't know what happened to it. It was really, really hard stone. And it was so hard they didn't know what it was. They broke diamond bits trying to drill holes in it and stuff. They made a movie in 2010 and 2001, Space Odyssey, and they featured the monolith, so that it's based on a little bit of reality. Most good fiction has a little bit of reality mixed in. And so that's where that idea of the monolith comes from. But yeah, we don't even have the ability to lift these super heavy stones hardly at all today. And so obviously these people were pretty advanced. Do you have an idea what they might have used to lift these huge heavy stones?
Based on some of the work you have done, on the work that others have, and patents are modern will sort of are beginning to suggest people have done. Let's talk about one particular example I think the audience will find interesting. I don't know how many people we have out there, but am I still coming through clearly?
Yeah, we have an audience. Yeah, I can verify that. Yeah, it shows on my screen, so we do have an audience, so that's good. And yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about a couple. Let's talk about a couple maybe relevant because that we're discovering these days. And there are probably very few people that actually know the concepts. We might hear that too.
You're breaking up. There are very few people that actually know what. Yeah, you're breaking up pretty bad. I can't tell what you're saying. Very few people actually know something.
Yeah, that might be better. Hello.
Yeah, that sounds a little better. Maybe you're. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead.
Been some plasma research where people act plasma and plasma as an effect by object change the molecular.
Yeah, we're losing you quite badly. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to hang up and you call right back if you don't mind, because we're losing you quite badly here. See if it gets better on the next connection. And save that thought about plasma research. Okay. So I'm going to hang up. You call me right. You call right back. Okay. Okay. That we have a little technical difficulty there. We really miss Brother Martin and his son Greg. They've been a great help a great blessing to the ministry. They, if anybody else out there wants to help volunteer to get these shows better quality or better help, but they've been a great blessing, and they're back now. So hopefully next week they'll be able to help us again. So we really miss them. Here we go. We got JT back. Hello, JT. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, we hear you. Go ahead and tell us what you were saying about the I'm not sure that it's any better, but let's give it a try. Go ahead and tell us about the plasma research that you were mentioning.
Yeah, well, I hope you can hear me a little better now. Again, with plasma and certain frequency, they are able to make things soft, like metals become very soft and pliable.
Yes, at room temperature, by the way, right?
Yes, at room temperature.
Yeah.
And I think people are it with those pictures on the Egyptian walls that the guys are plasma tubes.
Yeah, the pictures on the walls were actually plasma tubes. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I'm saying today is that the use of plasma technology with frequencies and such things can actually change the way that material bonds to itself. Metal becomes plate, and the rocks then became soft. And when they put the rocks next to each other, they simply, like putty dough, kind of pushed against each other, and that's why they were so closely with this kind of technology.
Yeah, basically, I agree with you 100%. There's evidence from the stones at many sites around the world that people had the ability to soften the stones. They take these very large stones and they had the ability to soften them so where their weight would press into each other, and they match perfectly. Every bump matches, the bump, the rock below it has the same bump in the opposite direction, so that they fit together perfectly. You can't even fit a razor blade between them, and they're irregular shapes. So there's virtually no way you could have done this without softening the stone, and their ancient literature even says that's what they did. They managed to take these huge 20, 30-ton stones. They used anti-gravity technology to get them up in place, but then once they got them in place, then they used another technology, which is you're referring to as plasma technology, to soften them. And again, there's many kinds of plasma. You got to use the right plasma technology. But you can soften huge stones and you can soften metals at room temperature, and then it doesn't take much. Their own weight of the stone, 20, 30-ton stone, its own weight can soften it enough to press it into place to where there's virtually no space at all. It's just tight. Just the two fit tight together. So that's pretty awesome, and that's what we see on these ancient structures. So it shows that this is not the most technologically advanced society that's ever existed. The one we have now is actually a little on the crude side compared to some of these that have been here before. Would you agree?
Yes. What's happening is people are rediscovering these kinds of items. The coral castle has a lead scale. What's his name? The guy who moved those large coral. He's one kind of illuminating system wedges these little stones that one man was moving, and clearly this without some kind of.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what you said because your voice is breaking up. I think you're calling from Skype to our phone, and I think we're just going to have to quit using Skype for the show. But for future. Do you have another phone that you can call from besides the Skype phone?
Should we just try Skype? You know how we.
Skype to Skype? Well, it's not going to work either because we've tried that before. We had the same issues. But so I guess Skype just doesn't work for the show. But let me repeat a little bit about what you said there. Basically, you're talking about the Coral Castle, which is fascinating stuff. Lee Scallion, the guy that built Coral Castle, some of those stones weigh 20, 30, 40 tons. And I think maybe even 60 tons. They're definitely big, at least 20-ton stones. I used to move stones with levers and so on. And these are bigger than I would ever try to do with levers. And this apparently all built by one guy in very short periods of time. And the rumor and the evidence is that he did have some sort of anti-gravity system to move these stones and lift them. And that place can still be visited. It's down in South Florida. It's called Coral Castle. It's on the tourist maps, and you pay $5 or something or $10, and you go in there and you can spend an hour or 2 hours, and everything's built out of solid stone. These huge, heavy stones, including the gate, and the gate is such.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think anybody sees some big pyramid or Coral Castle but realize that something.
Yeah, something unusual happened there. Yeah, anybody that visits will realize that. Yeah, so we appreciate you calling in. I think we'll keep the interview a little short tonight because it's the poor sound quality. I do apologize. You stay on though. We're going to ask for questions, and we'll see if there's any questions, and we'll have you on again. And next time we're going to try to get the sound quality better. So you'll probably have to borrow a phone from somebody instead of trying to use Skype. Apparently Skype is just. But do hang on. Let's see if we have any questions, and let's answer those for the viewers. And for some reason I'm not seeing any chats, but let's see if I see any. I have a phone here. I gave everybody the number for. Okay, let's see. Here's a person that texted me said that they oops, let's see. Options, messages. No questions on the phone. And again, if anybody wants to send in their questions, you can text them to 330-621-8667, or you can send them on any of our emails. wits2014@yahoo.com is a good one. And I'll check a couple things for questions right now. Let's see. We do have a question that relates to authority, and basically it says that the question is that there's a chapter that talks about rendering to the superior authorities, and that would go back to what Jesus said about giving unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. And so their question is, how do we justify that with the teachings about authority over this earth? How do we rectify the two? Are those two scriptures in opposition to each other? Do you have a thought on that, JT? Are you there, JT? Can you hear me? Okay, I guess JT, we lost JT. So I'll just answer that question. And again, if you have any more questions, feel free to text them in, chat them in. I apologize, for some reason no chats are showing up. Yeah, I don't understand it, but at least hopefully we're broadcasting because we have viewers. Here's a question. Let's see. And I'm going to answer the first question before going to the second one. Yeah, Romans 13. That's the one. That's the one I'm answering about, where it talks about being in submission. Okay, we got some. I can see and hear you. Do you know who's behind the oil spills? Yeah, the oil companies are behind the oil spills. The dark side, the people that are destroying the earth that God's going to judge, they're the ones behind the oil spills. And reconciling Romans chapter 13 is the one where it talks about, and similar to what Jesus said about giving unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. And also Jesus taught that we don't want to stumble people. The sons technically are free. And Jesus is all about freedom. So the balance here is just like the balance is just like Elijah. The first two, they came to arrest him. The first two groups of 51 people, 51 soldiers, 51 policemen, called down fire on them, burned them all up. The third one crawled up on his belly and said, "Oh, Master, how can I serve you?" Well, Elijah was happy to go with him. God said go with him. Happy went with him, talked to the king, tried to straighten out the king a little bit, and then left. So as much as we can, we do render unto the kings and to the people. I've worked for a lot of kings, and as much as we can, we try to help these people, but we're not their slaves. That needs to be real clear. And that's what Paul's saying in Romans there is as much as we can, we try to get along with these people and even try to help. And sometimes they are there for good. In Paul's day, most of them were. Today, a lot of governments are put there for good to keep the law and the order, and that's all good. And so we encourage that, and we want to help that as much as we can. But if they're doing things like destroying the earth, like oil spills and stealing everybody's money and making everybody slaves, well, then that all needs to stop. Just like Egypt made everybody slaves. Originally, they invited the children of Israel down as honored guests, and they stayed there for 400 years. But at the end of the 400 years, they were basically slaughtering them because they felt there was too many of them, so they'd kill all the babies. This kind of thing. The children of God need to stand up against it, and God did call Moses and Aaron and a few others to stand up against it, and they led the whole 2 million people or 3 million people free out of Egypt. 3 million slaves, 2 million slaves became free men because that's what God's all about, setting people free. And he doesn't like to see people getting into slavery type situations. So that's how you reconcile. There's a balance there. We go along with them as long as they're really helping the planet, but when they're destroying the planet, we're definitely going to take a stand for God and for the kingdom of God. When they're in lawlessness, we're not going to participate in their lawlessness. That's when the fire is going to fall from heaven and burn them up. So hopefully that clears that up. Let's see if we got any other questions. And thank you, Brother Greg, for sending us questions. Really appreciate it. Without you, I wouldn't have any of these questions, so we appreciate it. You know who's behind the oil spills? There's been more than one of them. Yes, there's been several, and they keep doing it over and over again as an excuse to release poisons into the environment. And it's unfortunate, but that's what's happening. So let me see what other we got for questions. Who's behind it? It's the oil companies and governments. They're in it too. They're getting paid off. People, if you watch our previous shows, you see that a lot of the money that comes from fuel, it's over half of it goes to the governments and the people in government, and they basically get a lot of payoffs, basically. But it's called taxes. It's called energy tax and fuel taxes and stuff like that. You can ask at the pump where you buy your gasoline how much of this goes to taxes, and you'll be surprised it's over 50-60%. All those taxes go to the United States government here in the United States, depending on what country you're in. Let's see the next question. Next question is, I'm glad God's showing us the old technology once again. Very cool. Turning rocks into Play-Doh. Absolutely cool. Yeah, that's exactly about what happened. How do followers of Jesus? Okay. Okay, that looks like all the questions there, and we do appreciate your questions. Let's see if we got a few more. We got, okay. Okay, it looks like all the questions that we have for today. Oh, there's possible some in the email. Let me check that. And we appreciate everybody tuning in. And no, nothing there. Okay, thanks for tuning in, and we'll have another show next week. Spread the word, spread your tell your friends, spread the news. The good news of Jesus Christ is that we are free, and God has set us free, and we don't. And we're going to be talking next week. We're going to have another fascinating guest on. Brother Linford, I believe, is the one for next week, and I'll have to confirm that. But he has some excellent experiences about the power of God, and so it'll be interesting to have him on. And then the week after, we're going to have Brother Richard. Well, maybe 2 weeks from now, Brother Richard LeBuin back on, who's going to show us some pictures of Australia and how that the 15-year drought, was stopped by the power of God. So that's something you guys won't want to miss. So God bless everybody, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in. See you next week.